The number 13 might be unlucky for some, but for Arnold Shonberg, the legendary Austrian-American composer, it literally meant the difference between life and death. Born in 1874, Schoenberg had an extreme and overwhelming fear of the number 13. His fear was so great, in fact, that he was said to have been terrified of dying during a year in which his age happened to be a multiple of 13. Every time he reached such a birthday, it left him filled with fear and dread. His 65th birthday in 1939, for example, was so filled with trepidation that one of his friends asked an astrologer to do his horoscope for him in the hope of calming him down. The astrologer reportedly told him that the current year would be dangerous for him, but crucially not fatal. True enough, Schoenberg survived his 65th, but on his 76th birthday in 1950, his fears grew even deeper still when another astrologer wrote to him to point out that the individual digits of his age, 7 plus 6, added up to 13, something that he had never even contemplated before. Things came to a head on Friday the 13th, 1951, when Schoenberg had become so overwhelmed with fear, dread and depression that he was unable to get out of bed. His wife later wrote of that day, "About 11:45, I looked at the clock and said to myself, another quarter of an hour, and then the worst is over. Then the doctor called me. Arnold's throat rattled twice, his heart gave a powerful beat, and that was the end." As it turned out, he had been right to fear the number 13 all along. Mark Twain was a famous writer and essayist whose books, such as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, need little introduction and whose quotations are still frequently cited to this day. But there remains a very strange aspect of his death, particularly the timing of it, that continues to intrigue. Twain was famously born in 1835, shortly after the appearance of Halley's Comet, which happens to become visible in the sky every 75 years or so. In 1909, he wrote, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It's coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. It would be a great disappointment in my life if I don't. The Almighty has said, no doubt, now here are these two unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." Eerily, Twain died of a heart attack exactly one day after Halley's Comet reached its closest point to the Sun. His prediction of his own demise had been absolutely spot on. Born in 1667, Abraham de Moivre was a celebrated French mathematician who is widely thought to have used mathematics to precisely predict the time of his own death. The story goes that in his later years, de Moivre had suffered from lethargy and had needed to sleep for longer and longer each night. He was said to have claimed that, initially, he was sleeping an extra 15 minutes each night, and believed that if this got significantly worse, he would eventually die. To this end, he decided to calculate exactly when he was likely to die based on the rate at which he was sleeping for longer each night. He died on November the 27th, 1754, the exact date on which he had calculated that it was most likely to happen. Whether it had really been down to mathematics, or was simply a huge coincidence, remains unclear. Mikey Welsh was an American artist and musician, best known for being part of the rock band Weezer. Tragically, he died unexpectedly in 2011 at the age of just 40, but it was the circumstances surrounding his untimely death that were perhaps the most intriguing. The strangeness began on September the 26th of that year. Welsh had written a post on Twitter stating, "Dreamt I died in Chicago next weekend, heart attack in my sleep, need to write my will today." He later amended the post stating, "Correction, the weekend after next." Tragically, on October 8th, Welsh really was found dead in his hotel room in Chicago. It turned out that he had suffered from a heart attack caused by a drug overdose. The strangest thing about this, however, was the fact that his death had happened during the exact weekend he had mentioned in his prediction just 2 weeks earlier. Had he really dreamt of his impending demise? We will likely never know. Born in 1957, Frank Pastore was a famous American Major League Baseball player who later enjoyed further success as a radio host. It was during one of his shows, however, that Pastor would make a prediction that would come back to haunt him in a big way. On November 19th, 2012, he had been hosting a segment on his show on the topics of faith and death. During the program, he said, "You guys know I ride a motorcycle, don't you? So, at any moment, especially with the idiot people who cross the diamond lane into my lane, all right, without any blinkers, not that I'm angry about it, but at any minute I could be spread out all over the 210 freeway." These words would end up becoming eerily true just hours later when, while riding his Honda XTV 1800 on the Foothill 210 freeway in California, he was involved in a collision with another vehicle that caused him to be thrown off his bike. The accident saw him sustain life-threatening head injuries and, around a month later, he passed away in hospital. Somehow, Pastor had precisely predicted the manner in which he would die, and had done so just hours before it actually happened. Whether he had truly foreseen what would happen on some level, or if the whole thing was pure coincidence, we will likely never know for sure.